welcome to the FSF PopCast live show. Holy cow, kids and cadets, welcome to the FSF PopCast. We are live on this Memorial Day Monday. Now we're going live tonight because, well, we can. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about tonight, and we're very, very excited to get into this. And we've already got Kathleen, who is, as you can see, is not on camera tonight. She's been replaced by her hubby, producer John. And yeah, someone in there. Did we forget how to use technology again? It wasn't even 7 o'clock yet, Kathleen.
Yeah, you were like a whole 30 seconds early.
Yeah.
So until you're 5 seconds late.
Anyway, we're live. We're here, and we're very excited. So our topic for tonight is one that I'm honestly surprised it didn't come up earlier. I thought that this would be something that we would be talking about or would have talked about at some other point because A, it's a big deal to Ben, and B, it's a big deal to John, and C, I watched the movies and I read the books and a couple of the books and stuff. And but anyway, if you're wondering, it's Lord of the Rings. We're going to talk about Lord of the Rings tonight and all things that are Lord of the Rings adjacent and all that kind of stuff. But before we get into any of that, I just want to remind everybody that our podcast is made possible by the support of our show partners. That, of course, is Storylines Video Editors, TCT, where fandom meets fashion, which is where I got this really cool Michigan Mandalorian shirt. Yeah, they got some really cool designs out there. Level Up Sabers, who we get our lightsabers from, and Monkey Cult Coffee, who helps caffeinate us and keep us smiling. But yeah. And before we jump into the Lord of the Rings content, one more thing. Want to remind everybody that we did revise our Patreon subscription levels. There are only 3 now. There's a $1 in the first pod, $3 in pod 2, and $15 in pod 3. So the layout, that's the layout there. And if you go for the $15 one, you get to have an opportunity to come on a live show like this one, and also one as our RPG. So we're very excited to be able to talk with you guys about that and have some of our viewers jump in and being part of the madness here. Monkey Cult Coffee, fueling bad decisions since 2024. I mean, you're not wrong.
So who do we blame our earlier bad decisions on? Poor Logan?
I mean, you do have a small child, so.
There were no bourbon sponsors. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind a bourbon sponsor. I mean,
I'll make some calls.
Just saying. I mean, if Dragon's Milk is listening, yes, please.
We might have to go a little smaller than them.
Kathleen Wass says our parents respond. Yeah, well,
I mean,
it's worth a try. It's definitely worth a try. But yeah, so let's get into tonight's topic and the show that means the most to Ben and John, and they're mostly excited to talk about. And that, of course, is the Rings of Power.
Okay. So,
okay. No, there's gonna this
Okay. I put this in as a joke because I knew that I'd get that reaction. So here's what we're actually going to talk about: the Rings of Power.
Okay, you have to give the credit for at least keeping the franchise in the mind of the popular culture.
No, the movies did that enough. They didn't need more. They didn't need this. Whatever this is. I do love that the background though is slightly cut off, so you just see the Rings of Power.
I didn't notice that, but yeah, you're right. Oh,
now that you mention it, yeah, we do get that. But no, we are actually here tonight to talk about the Lord of the Rings. So
extended edition only.
I'll talk about any of them. I love the
watch.
I remember going to see the movies in the theater and thinking, wow, these are really long. They're really good. I thought I couldn't get over how good the movies were. But then I remember when they announced that there was going to be the extended edition, I was like, my butt was numb at the end of the regular ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't care. I'll grab popcorn. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the theatrical edition of Return of the King was like almost 3.5 hours, and then the extended is like an extra hour of content.
And they still have more stuff they filmed and didn't put in it.
Yeah, I want
Warrior's Wedding.
extended edition.
Yeah, we've had one extended edition, yes. But what about a second?
Second.
What about second edition? So if they put that out, is that then the Zack Snyder edition? Because he re-releases everything.
No. Just
Okay.
no.
Snyder had nothing to do with this. We do not need the Snyder cut of Lord of the Rings.
Everything
will be too dark. Nothing will make sense. For some reason, it's going to be in 4:3.
And you're just going to see like Frodo turning with the ring just in the slowest of slow motion. He'll think he's Drax if my movements are imperceptible.
Oh.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. So seriously, let's have a serious conversation. Serious. We'll use air quotes on that because doing this crow, chances of having a completely serious conversation is already out the window. All right. So let's start with the very first question. What impact on the world did the works of Tolkien have? So there's pop culture references, things along those lines. Go ahead, fire away.
Literally all of it.
Yeah.
All modern fantasy, all modern like types of stories like that. Things like even Star Wars has taken inspiration from the Lord of the Rings. Dungeons and Dragons is literally just, what if we played the Lord of the Rings?
Yeah. TSR was sued for using the word hobbit.
Yeah, they had to change it to halfling.
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, it did. It's nice to see you coming along like that, Kathleen.
There's so many things. Even like the stereotypical like wizard aesthetic didn't come about until Gandalf.
Yeah. Oh, because of the hat and the coat, the robe.
Yeah. I mean, prior to that, what we thought of as like the wizard is the actual like wizard, which means wise man. And that would be something like Merlin, who was not seen as a wise man, but more of kind of like a trickster magician.
Yeah.
And that's where you get the tall, pointy star hat.
And wasn't Merlin in a lot of different references kind of like thought of as kind of like kooky?
Yeah.
You know, not the wise, magician or anything along those lines, but kind of the kooky guy over there playing with his flint rocks.
Yeah, for the most part, I don't think Merlin is really referenced as a wizard more than like 2 or 3 times. Usually as a sorcerer or magician, some kind of like warlock. Lots of magical type names, but wizard is not one of those things that's frequently mentioned for their archetype. And then you get the wizards of the Lord of the Rings, these wise old beings, because technically they're not even men.
Nope.
Did you know that, Tim?
Just split.
No, I'm
okay. So 8.5 minutes in, we're getting deep lore here.
Story time.
There is a hierarchy in Tolkien's world. The Ishtari, the wizards, there are 5. There's the 2 blue ones that are not named. There's Radagast the brown, Gandalf the gray, and Saruman the white. They are not people. They are spirits. They are something called Maiar. Think of lesser spirits, kind of like lesser angels, who are controlled by the Valar. Those are basically the archangels. A lot of people misinterpret them as gods. They are not gods. Tolkien explicitly says that there is only one god, mainly because he was a devout Christian, but there's only one god in Tolkien's world. That is Eru Ilúvatar.
Okay.
And Ilúvatar is the one who brought everything into existence through the Valar.
Mm-hmm. Kathleen, that's the rogue. It's always the rogue.
But
so although I know you're not a fan of Rings of Power, I do want to make mention of this, and this might help me to understand it a little bit. So I'm going to ask you this based on that. So in Rings of Power, when we see the character who, you're not sure of who he is for a while in the series. He kind of comes in on like this comet, lands on the ground, takes the form of a man. So I'm assuming, and then that ends up being Gandalf at the end. But is that what we're talking about here when you're talking about how it's not?
Yeah, they're not
meant?
actually meant. Okay, so there's some unfinished tales that Tolkien mostly wrote, notes and such. We are told in the beginning of The Lord of the Rings that this is not Gandalf's first trek into Middle-earth. He did this once before when the elves first woke up. Him and the other Ishtari were originally there to protect the first children of Iluvatar, the elves. He was basically put out there to protect them from Morgoth, or Melkor.
Mm-hmm.
Melkor is one of the Valar, incredibly powerful, later named Morgoth by the elves. And to kind of like fight off all the bad stuff, the Valar sent out a couple of their Maiar to protect the people. At that point, they were allowed to be full splendor, as powerful as they want, major displays, basically dropping a nuke wherever they wanted.
Okay.
In the second attempt to fight evil, they realized that overwhelming displays of force only scared people to go to the opposite side. So this is where these same Maiar were brought back to Middle-earth, but with a gentler approach. They were seen as old, wrinkled, weak people, but with great wisdom. Their main purpose was to simply advise, and that was it.
Okay. So here's my next question, because you mentioned this earlier, and we already knew we were nerds, Kathleen. Thank you.
Yes.
So you mentioned that
I could go off about the entirety of the Silmarillion. I don't think we have time for that.
Well, we probably do. We just need to schedule it. All right. So let me.
We already had one podcast, but what about second podcast?
A second podcast, exactly. I think that joke's going to get a lot of legs tonight. So,
oh yeah.
You mentioned earlier that there was an influence on Lord of the Rings on Star Wars. Now, I'm going to assume that being the Star Wars fan here, I'm going to assume that is the Jedi with their robes and being the wise.
Oh, no.
No?
No?
What were you referring to then?
Ben Kenobi. The wizened old man who dies and comes back more powerful than before.
Okay,
That's Gandalf. Gandalf the Grey into Gandalf the White.
Ah, okay.
Kenobi the brown to Kenobi the see-through and slightly blue.
Kenobi the transparent.
The Kenobi the transparent blue who gets tired and sits on logs.
Hey, if you ever had to answer questions from a 20-year-old, you get it.
I have a couple of.
And I'm sure there's moments. I'm sure there's moments where you're like, oh.
Yeah,
there's a reason why I'm asking for a bourbon sponsor, okay?
Right. Side point, I didn't understand why Yoda laid down and died until I had a child asking me questions every day.
Exactly. And yes,
I'm just
when we
tired
talk
of
about Kenobi,
Yep.
all hail space Jesus.
But there's a lot more to it. It's all still kind of based in like Arthurian myth, like King Arthur, stuff like that. You know, the chosen one who pulls the sword from the stone, that could be Luke Skywalker. That could be Aragorn. Sure. That could be whatever. There's lots of that kind of sprinkled into everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I just, as soon as you said that, there was a Star Wars connection, that my mind immediately went to the Jedi because of the robe and being the wiser of the,
And obviously the third installment of each trilogy, Return of the.
Well, there's also that. What's up, Jason? Jason Taylor from 3 Geeks Podcast. Go check out 3 Geeks. Good friends of ours.
Oh, yeah.
Good dudes. Okay.
But there's other things about that, too, like an incredibly powerful person falling to the dark side. Well, that could, in a way, be Saruman or Sauron. Sauron is one of the Maiar. They're actually more powerful than any of the wizards.
And then he goes and joins the dark side, basically, by joining Saruman.
Yeah. And then you have, that could be Anakin. That could be. There's a lot of bits and pieces that you can pull from that you go, oh, that's very similar themes as this and as that. And it could be because of the base source material, such as the Legend of King Arthur and everything, all still connecting the two together. Because Tolkien was a huge fan of like old folklore and old like King Arthur stories and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yes, Kathleen does look a little weird in the bottom there.
It's a lovely beard she's grown.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lovely beard. Okay, so you mentioned that there was some other pop culture references. You said you kind of gave it the hand wash of, you know, the Jedi hand wash of everything. So what are some more distinct references that people could look for when they're thinking about direct correlation between Lord of the Rings and this other thing?
I mean, we mentioned D&D.
Yeah. Have you listened to Led Zeppelin?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the one. Honestly, that was the one I was thinking with the Zoso album.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few other references sprinkled throughout, you know, other albums, but yeah. A
lot of music has also been inspired by Lord of the Rings, and there's a lot of reason behind that as well.
Blind Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
You know, wonderful. What country are they from? I can't think right now. Sorry. Folk metal band from somewhere in Europe. I'm very sorry. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but they have lots of references in theirs.
There's always the ever so classic song of they're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
Well, yeah.
The next time any of us watches the trilogy, we have to wait for that line, pause the video, load the YouTube video of the song, and then let them go back to the movie.
I did actually find an edit of that where it's literally just everything is the same.
Okay.
Except for that one scene where they're taking the hobbits to Isengard, and then it continues on as if nothing actually happened.
Well, that's how it should be in a musical. It was all in your head, and you're just carrying on.
But they're oh geez, I'm just trying to think right now. I mean, just starting with D&D. I mean, there's so many. Like D&D first edition, there's the wizards that all look like Gandalf. There's the hobbits or the halflings. And for the most part, the stereotypical first edition party is the Fellowship.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And even the first dragon on the first box set for D&D was a red dragon.
Yeah, Smaug.
Yeah.
There's so many wonderful... there's a lot of random comments popping in and out. There's so many wonderful references to the Lord of the Rings. People, oh God, I'm trying to think. I was just watching something the other day, and they made. My brain died on the words. A lot of people just fully directly quoting from the movies or the books, things like that.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
We can't go grocery shopping without saying potatoes.
Potatoes.
Boil them, mash them, stick them in
the stew. Yeah.
Which, if you start saying that in the grocery store, every once in a while, somebody across the produce.
I've had people join in with it. Join in with me. Yes.
Yes.
Boil them, mash them, and you hear stick them in a stew. You know, it happens.
It's wonderful.
Yes, you guys are just having a random conversation in the comments, and I love it.
And
keep
we
going.
Appreciate it.
All right. But when it comes to, we've mentioned music about 100 times so far.
Yeah.
Right.
Music is one of the most important themes of Tolkien's work.
Yes.
Music and love. Those are the top two.
Mm-hmm.
There's heroics, there's adventure, there's all these other things. Even faith is a major topic, but the top two are music and love.
Yes.
The universe of Middle-earth was brought into being by Iluvatar singing with the Valar, singing existence into existence.
Yes.
Okay, so we talked about, you know, its impact on other works. What about its impact on, like, there's been discussion over the years that it had a direct impact or was in some level in competition with, like, the Golden Compass or the Chronicles of Narnia.
Well, Narnia, definitely not, because Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were best friends.
Yeah.
They would rip on each other all the time.
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis put Santa Claus in Narnia to spite Tolkien. Tolkien was like, you cannot put Santa Claus in your book. And he's like, what if I do anyway? Treebeard.
Mm-hmm.
Treebeard is C.S. Lewis.
Did not know that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like I hadn't done in-depth research on this, so I'm not going to put it out there like it was a point of fact. But I just remember reading somewhere in the past that there was some level of contention between the two, and maybe they misunderstood the fact that these two were friends and that they were kind of riffing on each other and having friendship between the books. But then there's the Golden Compass, which I have never read. I didn't watch the movie, and it didn't really interest me. But it was said to be a ripoff of Lewis's work, but an even worse copy of Tolkien's work.
I'm curious because I don't actually remember when the Golden Compass.
Yeah, I think it was significantly later. But I do know there was an issue with when Tolkien went to publish The Hobbit, and somebody wrote back to him about the it's dwarfs, not dwarves. Look it up. And Tolkien wrote back, I wrote the Oxford English Dictionary. It's dwarves.
Do not correct me.
Yeah. So, I mean,
the Golden Compass didn't come out until 1995.
Yeah. Wow.
Whereas The Hobbit came out in 1937.
According to Bucky Barnes, he had a first copy.
Which it's interesting that the revision from the original print of The Hobbit to further printings of The Hobbit that had to incorporate Lord of the Rings, there's an explanation, not just of, I decided to rewrite this so it made more sense. They made it an in-universe. He made it an in-universe explanation that, so Gandalf figured out that Bilbo was lying and made him rewrite this to be honest.
So, to explain to him, in the original publication of The Hobbit, in the chapter Riddles in the Dark, where Bilbo and Gollum have their riddle game,
right?
Bilbo wins and actually gets the ring as a prize. Gollum just hands it over. It's like, here you go, you won, good job. That, in The Lord of the Rings, was then written out being like, that was something that Bilbo said to kind of like solidify their claim on the ring. It was the ring telling him to make a lie that like made it like, no, I won this. I earned this.
Mm-hmm.
It took Gandalf years to effectively force the truth out of Bilbo.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's when you have the later publications of The Hobbit where it's, Bilbo found it, Riddles in the Dark, and then everything went wrong, and then blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
There's an in-universe explanation why it was changed, and I love that.
Yes.
I also find it funny that the entirety of The Hobbit was written down because it was a bedtime story that he would tell his children, and he would say it differently over the months, and they would go, wait, that's not what happened last time.
Wait, that's not the color of Thorin's cloak last time you told us, Dad. Now see here, you little...
That's not,
and then Tolkien had to write it all down. Tolkien had to write it down because his kids were just menace to society.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there was a rewrite for that, for an in-universe explanation, when do we get the rewrite for the in-universe explanation for the Battle of the Five Armies?
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that, Tim.
What do you mean? There's a rewrite for it. The book happened, and in the book, Bilbo gets knocked unconscious. You don't see any of the fight. You just know it went very poorly for Thorin.
Yeah, so there was a certain amount of
movies.
There was a certain amount of artistic license taken with that, which happens anytime you interpret from one medium to another.
There was this much artistic license that went to this much artistic license.
Because
I literally, hang on, let me grab my copy of The Hobbit and I will show you something.
Yeah, that was Peter Jackson. I know that. I just wanted to get...
It was not Peter Jackson. That was the studios. Peter Jackson didn't want any of that. So
He was not happy with that movie.
this is The Hobbit.
Yep.
This
Right.
is about an inch thick.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see 3 movies in this? How many pages is this?
You don't.
Oh, I have it
My
upside down.
copy is 250.
This is the first chapter of the Lord of the Rings. 276 pages. And some of that is also just the foreword.
And the maps.
So let's roughly just say 270. How do you split 270 pages into 3 movies?
Okay, so if you go with the concept of 1 page is 1 minute.
You still don't have enough.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, you
each
still don't
movie
have
needs
enough.
a beginning, middle, and end.
What's up, Tyson? Hey, buddy.
Hello.
Glad you made it. Kathleen says, even when Tolkien's storytelling, stretching it to 3 movies was rough. Yeah.
Oh,
is.
yeah. Especially when
Even-
most of the descriptions in Tolkien's work are very mundane descriptions.
Right.
There's a solid 2 paragraphs describing Bilbo's the mantelpiece for the fireplace.
Yeah.
That's all visual in a movie. How do you make
Right.
that? How do you
Right.
make that screen
How does
time?
that go? How does that go from written word to projected screen without more than 3 seconds of going, yep, there's the mantle.
Yeah.
Unless
So-
you're sitting there panning across the mantelpiece for 5 minutes.
Hold
Which
on,
that is one of the reasons
we got a
why
couple
all
pages
of
of panning.
that's one of the reasons why all of the original Lord of the Rings movies were so beautiful, because things were so wonderfully described. They didn't have to put too much effort into making costumes. Well, designing costumes, I mean.
Right.
Because they were like, okay, all of these things are described in excruciating detail.
Okay.
So, on that note, jumping ahead to, we have another movie coming out soon. The Search for Gollum. Peter Jackson's
Right.
attached to it. As skeptical as I am with that short timeline, they've done so much work before, and they've probably been working on it before this. I'm not as nervous as I probably should be.
Because that comes out this year, doesn't it?
Next year.
Oh, is it next year?
Yeah.
That was a growly bean, in case you guys were, anybody was wondering. That's Ben's dog, Josie. She's the bean. She was growling. She's a growly bean.
All
All right.
that short of a timeline, look at the movie and it's like, okay, wait a minute. But yes, as much as they talk about food in all of the books, it is basically just a food blog.
Yeah, I can go with that.
Can I talk about our wonderful
Yes.
barefooted people for an extended period of time real quick?
I was kind of planning on you getting on this at some point. So
The hobbits. The hobbits are the greatest fantasy species ever. Everyone's like, oh, the elves live forever. They're beautiful, majestic. Dwarves are sturdy and strong. The hobbits are the best. Hands down.
Hobbit
They
question
are.
for you before you go any further on this stuff. Okay, this is also going to go back to the show you don't like to watch, Ring of Power. What's the difference between a hobbit and a Harfoot?
They are both hobbits. It's just to where are they stationed effectively.
Okay.
So you have
That's what I wasn't getting while watching the show. Why were these ones called Harfoots? And then there was, I'm like, they look like hobbits. They have big, ugly, hairy feet like hobbits.
I mean, in the same reason why they're Shire folk and Bucklanders. They're both hobbits, but it's where are you from? The
Yeah.
people in the Shire are the hobbits of the Shire, and then you have the hobbits of Buckland, which that's where Merry and Pippin are from.
Right. But
Technically
see, but
Bilbo
in-
and Frodo as well, but anyway.
but in the movies, they just say that, they just called them hobbits from Buckland. They didn't call them Bucklandites or Bucklanteers or
No,
whatever.
they do. They say Bucklanders.
Okay, I must have missed that as many times as I've watched it.
The Gaffer Gamgee, Sam's father, says not to pay attention to those Bucklanders and things like that, saying they're a little weird.
Okay, yeah, I must have missed that because I never noticed that. I think that's probably where my confusion came in, because I was like I thought this was like hobbits before they were called hobbits. That's what I was taking it as all throughout the show. But
Well, that is kind of the point. Because this is one of the things I really don't like about Rings of Power. For the most part, in Middle-earth, nobody knows that the hobbits exist. No one. There's only one group of people that actually know Hobbit Girl Summer, eating copious amounts of food, running barefoot, and just enjoying the day. That's hey, that's not bad.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, for the most part. Here's the thing, though. They already had a name for that.
Yes.
The people that recently settled towards the river where...
I had to read that one twice.
Yep, same. That is not what they were called.
This is
They are Bucklanders from the land of Buckland. Anyway, throughout most of Lord of the Rings, no one really knows what hobbits are. They've never really met hobbits.
Okay.
For the most part, the only ones that know about the hobbits are Elrond, because he met Bilbo during the trip to the Lonely Mountain. Gandalf, because Gandalf. Saruman didn't even learn of the hobbits until, I think, about 30, 40 years after the events of The Hobbit. The only ones that actually knew of the halflings before anything else were the people of Rohan.
Okay.
Because before they moved to what would then be called Rohan, they lived in the relative vicinity of the river folk, such as Gollum.
Yeah.
And they refer to them as Hobbitla. And they were like, this is why when Theoden meets Merry and Pippin, they're like, oh, I know of your people. I've never met one, but we call you Hobbitla.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
This is also why Sauron couldn't find the ring. Because both the hobbits and the Shire themselves didn't exist when Sauron died.
Oh,
so he was looking around, not knowing where this effectively country exists.
It was the Camino of Middle-earth.
Yeah, basically. So Sauron finally hears where this is why the Nazgûl spend, I think, 20 some odd years looking for Bilbo, because the Nazgûl are running around all of Middle-earth just going, Shire, Baggins, and they're like, we have no idea what you're talking about.
And on that note, can we just admit that Farmer Maggot was done dirty in the movies?
Yeah, he barely was there.
Right, but what he is, he's scared of the Nazgûl. In the books, he's yelling at the Wraith, hey, if you come back here, I'm going to break your kneecaps.
No, he literally says, if you come back here, I'll sick my dogs on you.
Yeah.
He has 3 massive dogs.
Yes.
3 big bulldogs for security named Grip, Fang, and Gnasher. And one of the Nazgûl walks up and is just like, I'm looking for Bilbo Baggins, or just Baggins in general. And Farmer Maggot, this teeny tiny old hobbit,
the size of
my
child,
just like, I'll fight you.
Yeah.
All right. So Tyson wants to know, is halfling a racial slur like Peck is to Nelwyn's and Willow?
It is not. Merry and Pippin tell Treebeard that they're halflings. They say, we're hobbits, we're Shire folk, halflings.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not any kind of an insult. What is an insult, which is why Elrond is named so specifically, Elrond half-elven.
Yes.
He is actually half-elf, half-man. Half-elven is a compliment. Half-man is an insult.
That carries over into Dragonlance.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's why they have that comment in Dragonlance. Because of Elrond half-elven. Once again, more inspiration. But speaking of Elrond, this is just how this is going to go. It's just going to be, the ding, 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 ding about every topic in The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Did you know that Aragorn is related to Elrond?
Through several generations, but yes.
Not on Elrond's side. So,
okay, yeah.
Elrond's dad is... Okay, so there's two great kings of the elves and men. One of which kind of breaks off and founds Rivendell. The other one... my brain just died on the name. I had it and it was gone. Numenor, there we go. The other one being also half a man. All right, I'm going to back up and explain a lot of this. Okay, so when you kind of intermix elves and men, you can pick one or the other. You cannot have both. And there's a couple reasons for that. The elves, during the end of days, will effectively go back to Valinor and act as servants for the Valar. Men and hobbits, specifically, are the only ones that will actually see an afterlife. There's some kind of heaven, but only for those two peoples. Dwarves are in a weird position. We'll get into that later. They're not supposed to be
there at all.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. So when you have a half man, half elf, you have to choose one or the other. Now, of those two brothers, one of them chose to be an elf, the other a man. The elf founded Rivendell. The man founded Numenor. Numenor was this great kingdom of the West that king eventually, through a very long chain, got to Aragorn.
Which is what they show in Rings of Power.
Very poorly. I mean, okay, I understand the stuff that's not written down, stuff they're doing.
I'm bringing it up from the standpoint of I don't know this is what I know.
Okay,
I don't know all the lore. I'm just like, you're bringing up something. I'm like, I kind of feel like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where I'm like doing the whistle and pointing at the screen, going,
okay,
yeah. Like, I know that. I'm like, I know that. I know that part. They showed that in Rings of Power. I know that.
This is Captain America moment of just, I understood that reference.
Yes,
bingo.
But Rings of Power, for the most part, is essentially somehow Palpatine returned.
So the entirety of the Rings of Power was Amazon went to the Tolkien estate and went, hey, can we make a show about the Silmarillion? And the Tolkien estate said, absolutely not. You are not allowed to do this no matter what. But Amazon still has the movie, or at least the show rights of Lord of the Rings as a show. I keep seeing the Numas. So Amazon went, hey, we're going to do a Silmarillion-inspired show. So they had to change major aspects and everything. But they changed the best things. They cut out the best things of the story.
Okay, but did they cut out the best things of the story because if they would have kept them in, they would have got sued?
Yes.
Or did they keep?
Probably yes, but they shouldn't have done it to begin with.
You can tell a story based on this, but you can't actually use this.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate for this for just a moment. Okay. So here, this is a serious, legitimate question I have. Now I always say that sometimes it's better to have when I'm looking at you firmly in the eye, Rise of Skywalker. It's better to have bad Star Wars than no Star Wars. Is this an instance where it's better to have a bad version of something Lord of the Rings than to not have it?
Nope.
Me and John at the same time just
nope.
Okay. Actually, this is a good analogy. Well, I don't remember the name of the show, the one that you absolutely hated that had the laser swords.
That I hated?
Yeah. They had like the fake lightsabers.
The holiday special?
No. Oh God, I can't remember the name of it. The actress who played Mantis was one of the main characters.
Oh.
And they had like effectively like lightsabers, but they were not lightsabers. It was just a terrible, I don't remember what it was called.
It's a
That
psionic.
just goes to show.
For copyright.
You were talking about this like months ago. So again, this is me pulling fragments of memory. But it's basically like, what if we were planning on making a Star Wars movie, but had no rights to Star Wars? So you have laser swords, you have people with magical powers, but you can't say the Force, you can't say Jedi, you can't say lightsaber, and you can't use Rebel Moon. I think it was Rebel Moon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Tyson.
Okay, Rebel Moon is hot garbage trash made by Zack Slow Motion Snyder, and that should never be brought up in the same conversation as Star Wars.
Exactly what I'm getting at. That's how it feels.
I like how John
Wings
wants to wildly gestate with both hands, but he's cautiously keeping the right arm down, and just the left arm is going out in very emphatically.
I also have a very large.
I'm kind of in the same boat. My left arm. I was on a hiking trip, so my left arm really hurts. But still, the
there you go, Tyson. Thank you. Yeah,
you're fantastic. But yeah, it's the equivalent of like, we want to tell a Star Wars story, but we don't have access to any actual Star Wars.
Okay,
that's how you get Rebel Moon.
I get it now. And if we cannot talk about that godforsaken show anymore, I'll be happy.
Are you referring to Rebel Moon or Rings of Power?
Rebel Moon is actually Rings of Power. But I've come from it from a very different POV than you guys, and I get that. You guys are longtime Lord of the Rings fans. It's kind of part of your DNA and your fandoms and all that. So I get it. But yeah. So for me, it was just it helped explain a few things, but maybe not properly. So we'll see.
All that being said, if you enjoy the show, enjoy the show. Yeah. However, if you get in a room with me and Ben, we're probably going to tell you why you're wrong.
You will be mocked mercilessly, but still enjoy the show.
We will simply try to educate you.
No, off camera, I'm going to get mocked mercilessly. Later, they will educate everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's change it up here just a little bit. What's your least favorite? No. We're still in the same topic. We're still in the same. So there's all the things the two of you love about Lord of the Rings. What's one thing you dislike the most about the source material?
Oh, geez. That it was never finished.
Yeah.
That's okay. So the entirety of the universe of Tolkien's writing, there are some bits that you're like, okay, but why was that there? Like Tom Bombadil. That whole... Tim, do you have any idea who Tom Bombadil is?
Nope.
Cool. All right. Think of it.
I love how John's like, God, we gotta talk to this idiot.
The best way to explain Tom Bombadil is, what if in this beautiful epic of the Lord of the Rings, we just put a Looney Tunes character in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're just so weirdly placed. Their own story is fantastic.
Yes.
They are just the biggest simp for their hot river wife. That's the whole point of Tom Bombadil, is just, I am a plot device. Nothing can hurt me. Oh, the One Ring, the thing that corrupts all things? Not me.
Yeah, if you leave it here, I'm going to lose it.
Yeah. But if there's some things that are like oddly placed, but in the grand work of Tolkien, I cannot actually think of a single thing that I do not enjoy.
So, question for you while John's thinking of his answer.
Yeah, I don't
didn't one of Tolkien's son though take up the writing, or didn't? Or
yes,
was
Christopher.
It just? Yep. So he continued on the stories, or was he just like
he edited,
cataloging Dad's work?
He kind of took his father's notes and went, okay, there's bits and pieces missing, and he was aware enough of his dad's work that he was like, I can probably fill in the gaps, or just simply make it more coherent. Because there's an old picture of like Tolkien's office, just millions of pieces of paper tossed around everywhere, and they're all notes of that universe.
Oh wow, okay.
So upon Tolkien's passing, his son Christopher took over the cataloging and editing of the rest of the stories. This is also where you get things like the Silmarillion is technically not done.
No. I mean,
there's also an entire anthology of unfinished tales.
How many volumes is that now?
It's a lot. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of those types of things of just... Unfortunately, they no longer have the source material. They're just working on notes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a little sad.
But that picture of Tolkien in his library with all the notes and everything reminded me of the scene when Gandalf's looking for information about the ring. He's just going through all these sheaves of paper and scrolls, and it seems random, but he finally finds the note he's looking for. I'm pretty sure there's a basis there. Pretty sure.
Yeah. I don't know if that was actually a reference, but this does come down to... I know we don't really talk about this kind of stuff on the podcast, but it is one of the core elements of Tolkien's work, and it's faith.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's just part of it.
I mean, this is why at the end of The Lord of the Rings, Frodo makes it to Mount Doom. He makes it to the volcano. He completed his quest. That was all he had to do, was make it there. But he could not throw in the ring.
Yeah.
That could not be in the hand of a mortal. That had to be an act of God. So this is where Tolkien's faith comes in. This is why you have Frodo say, no, I will not throw the ring in. This is where Gollum comes in, tries to take it, and then eventually it still falls in.
There's a little...
It all had to happen in a certain way.
Interesting. Okay.
This is also where you have these weird coincidences that if this did not happen the way it did, nothing would have succeeded. Which is why, in my opinion, this is not actual fact, in my opinion, the true hero of the entirety of the Middle-earth saga
Samwise
Pippin.
Gamgee.
No, it's Pippin. If Pippin did not accidentally wake up the Balrog, everyone would have lost. Pippin knocks the skeleton down the well.
Mm-hmm.
The well wakes up the goblins and also the Balrog.
Yeah.
If Gandalf did not fight the Balrog, he never would have been Gandalf the White. If the party did not split because of that event, then Rohan would have fallen, and if Rohan fell, there would be no one to help Gondor in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, and then Gondor would have fallen.
Interesting. I have never watched Lord of the Rings and thought Pippin was the hero. I have never, ever considered that.
He's not literally like a heroic person, but you can still be a hero without being heroic. And in the books,
I get that, but I have never thought of him in the heroic frame of mind, because it was more of he's always, at least in the movies, and because it's been so long since I haven't read the book since high school. But in the movies, he's kind of, the guy who makes the accident, doesn't do the right thing, kind of the slacker, screw up. And so I just, in my mind, never once considered that he could be considered in a heroic light at any stretch of the imagination. So it's kind of a interesting thought for me.
Yeah, in the movies, he definitely was more of like the comic relief.
Sure.
Yeah. Like you had pretty much the 3PO R2D2 equivalent, which was Merry and Pippin. That was their whole shtick. There was the semi-serious and the kind of crazy.
I'll give you that one.
Now, in the books, though, Merry and Pippin are intelligent. They are aware of the scenario, and they're very brave. I mean, Merry pledges loyalty to Theoden, becomes one of the Rohirrim, and then Pippin pledges loyalty to Denethor, becomes one of the guards of the Steward of Gondor, stands guard on the wall, and fights in battle.
Mm-hmm.
They do beautiful work in the books about all this stuff. Samwise is an incredible character. Tyson, makes a point. But oh my god, it goes to show that out of the entirety of the Fellowship, you can see the hero in all of them.
Mm-hmm.
You can say it's Frodo because he's carrying the One Ring. You could say it's Aragorn because he is the prophesized king that will take over the realm, blah, blah, blah. But you can see all of them as the hero. Even Boromir.
Yeah.
Boromir was the firstborn son of Denethor, one of the most, basically the tank of the group. And he was only corrupted by the ring because he desperately wanted to save his people.
Right. I never took Boromir's turn for the ring as a selfishness or anything along those lines. I always saw that as he was trying to do something beneficial for his people. He wanted so desperately to help his people and save his people that he was willing to do whatever it took.
Yeah, he did the wrong thing for the right reasons.
Yeah, exactly. He knew what the ring could do. He knew that the power that the ring could bring, and he was willing to wage that in behalf of his people. And it was just the wrong play.
And it's also the moment he snapped out of the madness, he's like, I messed up. I am so sorry. Like screaming, apologizing to Frodo.
Mm-hmm.
And he made up for it.
Yeah.
Standing his ground, fighting off like an entire wave of Uruk-hai and protecting Merry and Pippin.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, it's definitely an amazing part of the story.
Which, speaking of, with the death of Boromir, I highly recommend looking up the song "The Lament of Boromir."
Okay.
Oh, Denethor gets nothing? Yeah, he's garbage.
Hot garbage.
Okay, he was corrupted.
Look at how he eats tomatoes. Look at this man and tell me that he is any kind of good.
That is like one of the worst scenes in cinema as he bites into that tomato and I'm just like, and I love fresh tomatoes out of the garden. It's especially because we grow cherry tomatoes in our garden, and I love eating those fresh. But every time I pop the first one into the season, I'm like, I am Denethor.
You're just like, and he's not even like, it's a little cherry tomato that you could easily just pop the whole thing in your mouth.
Right.
He intentionally bites it in half and does the most like kind of noise you can imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Tyson says it fits with Tolkien's faith, as you pointed out, like when Gandalf's telling Frodo in the mines of Moria that things were meant to happen. In that, there's probably a supreme creator, orchestrator of everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This is another reason why Gandalf tells Frodo that, like, when Frodo's sitting there like, I wish it had not happened in my time. And Gandalf's like, we don't get to choose. We just, like, it will happen when it happens. All we have to do is decide what we do in the time we are given. Or I probably butchered that quote because I'm
close enough.
Yeah. 9 to 20 cups of tea in.
Yeah, I get where you're going with that, though. All right, so let's talk about this, and I'm going to ask you guys this question because this is a question that on our interview show that I would ask of every person that comes on our show who has something to do with Star Wars, because I love Star Wars. I want to know what makes them tick. I want to know where they got into Star Wars. So, and you guys have all heard me ask this question. So, what was your entry point into the fandom? Now, for me, I'll give you mine just real briefly. I read The Hobbit in high school, and I read just the base, The Lord of the Rings. I don't know that I ever finished it. But I did. I remember reading The Hobbit, and I remember reading at least a good portion of Lord of the Rings. But I don't know if I ever read The Fellowship. I don't know if I ever read Return of the King. And then, of course, so when the movies came out, I was like, yeah, those look pretty cool. Those will be fun. And then I absolutely loved the movies.
Any entry point is a valid entry point. There's no gatekeeping or shame.
Right. Okay, understood.
For me, it was actually
also. Oh, sorry. Real quick to the gatekeeping thing. There is no wrong answer when it comes to what you're starting with Tolkien. There's none. You could read The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, Fall of Numenor. Every single story is the entry point if that is what you're doing. That's it.
Yep.
Anyway,
okay.
sorry. John, go on.
So when I was a little kid, my mom tried reading The Hobbit to me several times. I was like, Mom, this is boring. Kind of a Princess Bride, I don't want to read this story type thing. And eventually it clicked with me. It's like, wait, this is kind of cool. And that then led to, as a teenager, like, okay, so Lord of the Rings, Led Zeppelin, writing my notes for school in Elvish script so nobody could copy them. I was that nerd. I had like 3 friends on a good day.
No, I get it. For me,
Kathleen says middle school when
Return of the
Return of the
Wall
came out on DVD, and my friends introduced me to it. Then I found out my dad spray painted Frodo lives on a bridge in Kalamazoo.
Your dad was awesome, and he is also Treebeard.
I love that.
Tyson's entry point.
Yeah, I did. Okay, I realized that, but I didn't want to point it out when I said it.
The Hobbit cartoon.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings definitely came from the first PJ movie. So, all right. So Ben, where was your entry point? Where did you get into the fandom?
I mean, I was a kid when the movies came out, and that was definitely where it started. But I was not a fan at that point. I saw the movies and went, ooh, cool action movie, real fun, real awesome. I did not become a Tolkien devotee until I joined the Army in basic training.
Okay.
I was gifted a copy of The Hobbit to take with me. And it was it was an older book. It was from a friend, kind of like, hey, hand me down, here's a book. And it was in a brown leather binding. And when they were doing the shakedown for basic training, I had just quickly put The Hobbit down upside down and backwards. So people saw this small brown leather book and thought it was a Bible. And that was the only reason I was allowed to keep The Hobbit with me. You're not allowed to have entertainment when you're joining the Army. When you go to basic training or boot camp, whatever branch you're in, the most you're allowed to keep is some kind of religious text. I mean, that's at least how it was when I was joining. It might be different now. From what I hear, they allow cell phones. But when I joined, they were going to confiscate it if it wasn't a Bible. So they looked at it and went, is that a Bible? I'm like, yes, absolutely. And I'm very lucky because the gold foil letterings of The Hobbit and the big Tolkien symbol were faded away because of how old the book was. But during those few months, I reread The Hobbit probably 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's where my love of Tolkien's work came in. Because every time I would read it, I'd go, oh, that's a thing I missed the last time. Or that's a neat little detail. Or I'd look deeper into it or things like that. And then I read The Lord of the Rings, the entirety of it, and then got into the Silmarillion and all these. Everything about it is beautiful. And this also comes back into what I mentioned in the very beginning, the 2 major themes of Tolkien, one of which being love.
Right.
One of the major things I loved about it is how pure the love stories are.
Yeah.
I believe George R.R. Martin had a thing complaining about Tolkien's work, saying, oh, there's love, but you can never imagine the hobbits having like adult fun times. It's like, you don't need that in these stories. I mean, the amount of times that I have referred to my own beautiful wife as Luthien, it's all the time. And Luthien, and also subsequently Arwen, they were all just stand-ins for Tolkien's wife.
Right.
Beren was obviously Tolkien, and then Luthien, the most beautiful of Iluvatar's creation, the most beautiful being God has ever made. This man was just an absolute simp for his wife, and I fully stand for that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Arwen Evenstar, comparing someone to a sunset, and sitting there going, "That's my wife," all the time.
That's my lady right over there.
And just the absolute wonders of their love stories and how so many different love stories are in there. love story of Beren and Luthien, and then subsequently Aragorn and Arwen, and then even Faramir and Eowyn. Just so many fantastic stories. Even the more simple stories of Samwise Gamgee and Rosie.
Right.
Which, by the way, when George R.R. Martin is like, oh, I can never imagine the hobbits having like sexy times. Sam has 13 kids. Sam has 13.
Well,
They were
he
doing
Sam
something in that hobbit hole.
Clearly, Sam likes something other than just potatoes. Just saying. Yeah,
Sorry,
he
I cut
boiled up,
you
mashed
off
up something and put them in a stew, but
Oh God.
But yeah, okay. So there's.
Kill John.
I'm sorry. Wait, what?
What did we miss?
To fall out of his chair.
You almost fell out of your chair.
I did. It's great.
I'm gonna have to watch that again when this comes up on YouTube. I gotta
watch it in playback.
Oh
Listen to
man.
that. I saw him laughing for a second there.
Oh yeah.
Tyson says, as a former Mormon, 13 kids sounds totes normal.
Yeah, probably.
And frankly, George R.R. Martin doesn't get to say a word about any other authors and how they write love stories because, he was like, yeah, your brother and sister, you can go for it. So I don't think he gets a vote. I'm just saying.
And he can't criticize somebody who actually finished their story.
Well, technically speaking, Tolkien hasn't really, but yes, he has.
Yeah.
But
still,
all the way back to the beginning, the inspirations of Tolkien, George R.R. Martin, J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he was christened, he took an additional middle name, made sure it was R, so it kind of fit the vibe.
So I think my love came right from the start of the movie during the prologue. You're just thrown into something I've never seen before. Elves, magical rings, dwarves, orcs, that epic battle. Wow. So, let's see. Well, let's just jump into this. Oh, hey, question. You could put a pin in this for later, but why was the Tolkien estate against the Tolkien movie starring Nicholas Hoult? I've never seen it. The movie just kind of came and went. Does anybody know?
I kind of do. So it's one of those things of, if it were a documentary, that'd be a totally different conversation, and I'm sure they would have been fine with it. The problem is that they wanted it to be entertaining. They twisted history for entertainment's sake, which that's not what Tolkien was about. He was a historian first. Well, he was a lot of things first. Historian, linguist, myth expert, writer, author. He did a lot.
Christopher Lee.
Simp of wife.
Oh, we could talk about Christopher Lee too.
That's another episode.
You know, all of James
honestly,
Bond is inspired by Christopher Lee.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Honestly, we could do a Christopher Lee episode. We actually might want to do that. Actually, that would be a lot.
Which it is his birthday today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You messaged that to us earlier.
It dawned on me when I sent that. I sent a picture of Christopher Lee's birthday and then Theoden saying, "Hail the victorious dead." And then it dawned on me after I sent that both of those men are no longer here.
Mm-hmm. Only a little sad.
I mean, I cannot tell you how much, all the way back to everything we've just talked about. I know we're running about an hour in and we're probably going to end soon. The Lord of the Rings means so much to me on many different levels. When I need to sit and just ground myself and to relax concerning hobbits, the Shire theme, I put that on and it's just, I am suddenly in this cottagecore level world. There's just, I mean, I have my long Bilbo pipe right here. I also have several others. But I've started a pipe collection because of the Lord of the Rings. And I've been learning the art, as the hobbits would say, the art of pipe smoking. It is not a habit. It is not a thing you do. It is an art form. But there's that, and then the speech that Theoden gives right before the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. I I mean, the last time I watched the movies, I was sitting alone in here, and I was legit crying. Just sheer spears will be shaken, shields will be broken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Wait,
the whole thing.
Yeah, everything about it. There's so many moments, which really goes to show the attention and care that Peter Jackson and the whole crew put into the movies. That at least 4 or 5 times per movie, you will hear something or see something and just be brought to tears. Sorry. Now I'm just going off. Which I think is kind of the theme of this.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. And that's
but
okay.
I just, there will never be a time when I don't want to reread or listen to or whatever anything with Tolkien. It's not a habit, it's a hobbit.
Okay.
What? I don't.
Yeah.
It's a song. I figured John might get it, but okay. Now
I don't know that song. I don't know that reference.
It's a song from the 90s. It was a grunge-esque song called Habit by Case Choice. They're a one-hit wonder.
Oh!
It was a song about drug use, but you know, we're just...
Oh, yeah, maybe not that.
Yeah,
but I don't. The main thing I smoke in these pipes is actually like herbs and things like that.
Oh, I believe you. It's not a habit. I was like, not a habit. It's cool. I feel anyway.
Please don't sue us.
I'm stretching for something to say.
Hey, I kept it under 10 seconds. We're good. Howard Shore's score is absolutely incredible. Yes, it is. Just kind of catching up on some comments here since I was doing some typing and landing a joke that didn't hit. And Bernard Hill's death hit hard. Theoden and Edwin had a similar relationship as me and my dad.
Oh, yeah.
Tyson also says, and it plays throughout most of the movies, and you add his additions to the extended editions, hours and hours of amazing music.
Yep.
Let's see. Plus, I saw the movies the first time, the same time my cousin died. So Theoden's line is about his son killed me. Oh. And yeah, I shouldn't have put that one up on the screen, but it did. So there's that. So,
one of the things I will say, I find it harder and harder for myself just to sit down and read a book. Audiobooks are fantastic. Audiobooks count as books.
Yes.
You're still reading if you're listening to a book.
Your mind's still engaged.
You are doing the thing that your ancestors have done longer than printed page has been in existence. All story was spoken prior to written down.
Right.
But if you go online, you can look up Root and Twig and find an audio version of The Lord of the Rings. This one person, they are a fantastic voice actor. All of the characters have differentiating voices. They have fantastic dialogue, but they also mix in the music from the movies. So when they're doing the long expected party, they're also playing Concerning Hobbits. It's fantastic. So many of the fights, the Helm's Deep, you can hear the theme of the Uruk-hai. You can hear the clashing of metal and sword. And it's fantastic. It is an absolutely beautiful thing. I will see if we can post it in the description after. But I highly recommend looking up Root and Twig, The Lord of the Rings.
This is a different version. This is with Andy Serkis reading it, and that is also
Andy Serkis does a fantastic job too.
That is, and that's on Audible. But yeah, I got that one. I haven't gotten very far into it because I started listening to it, and then we had people coming on the show, and I wanted to listen to their books. So when we had Justina Ireland on, I listened to one of her books. When we had Adam Christopher on, I listened to one of his books, and then I got because I desperately want to get Delilah S. Dawson on the show. I listened to one of her books, which is called Inquisitor: Rise of the Red Blade, and that is just friggin' amazing. But that's a whole nother topic for another time because that's Star Wars, not Lord of the Rings. But
here you go. You can find them on SoundCloud.
Oh,
Root and Twig. They're also currently working on the Jungle Book.
really?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
but they have the Jungle Book, which is fantastic, but they also have the entirety of the 3 books of the Lord of the Rings, and everything about it's fantastic. Can you?
it's a bean.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll start wrapping this up to some degree. I knew we were going to go over an hour. I really wasn't worried about all of that. And this might even
If
be
we
a
don't
topic
stop,
where,
I'm never going to stop.
well, and I figured this might even be a topic where we do a part 2 because we've had nice interaction from the audience. We've had a good number of viewers. Obviously, this is a topic that people are interested in. So let's ask. I want to ask you guys one more question, and then we'll start wrapping this up. All right. So, what keeps you coming back to this universe? Now, when I think about that question in regards to Star Wars, it's because it's the thing that's like the comfortable blanket. It's always there when I need it most. It's the thing that comforts me and soothes me. If it's a rough day, I put on Star Wars and it makes my day better. So, for you guys, what is it about Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's universe that makes you go, yeah, I want to keep coming back to that?
For me, it's that you're not insignificant. You are this little guy, lives in the middle of nowhere. Nobody knows you exist, but you still have potential. You can still do great things with help from others. And since I have my own hobbit-sized creature that keeps barging in here, asking me why we're not done yet, I want her to know that she's not limited just because she's smaller than somebody else, just because she's from the middle of nowhere, just because she's a girl, even. None of those have to be limitations.
Correct.
You can look at these people who all they wanted to do was stay home, eat, smoke their pipe, and take a nap. But they got some motivation. They knocked a bucket down a well, and they ended up saving the world. She could do the same thing.
Fair enough. Okay. Ben, what about you?
It's a lot of different things. It's definitely that warm, comfortable blanket that, like, no matter what, I know how the story is going to end. But it's also comforting in a way that not every story of triumphant victory needs to have a happy ending. Because for the most part, in the books, there is, but isn't. I mean, in the books with the Lord of the Rings, after they defeat Sauron, after Gondor comes back to full power and all these other things, the hobbits return to the Shire and find that it's destroyed. That Saruman took over. He ruined everything. And sometimes there isn't a happy ending, especially for Frodo. He is in constant pain up until he leaves to the Undying Lands. And that, like, piece of reality of, like, things can end up good and still be a little sad. But then there's also all the beautiful pieces of this tale that you can pick and choose from. That you can go, yes, but this and but that. And just, there's so many different things that you can grab from just Tolkien's work. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like those answers. All right. Very good. Well, hey, let us know down in the comments when you're watching this, whether you're watching it now or you're watching it on a replay. If you think that this would be a fun thing for us to talk about as a part 2, I think it kind of would be. It's been a fun discussion for me, especially because now for me coming in, I have a limited base knowledge when it comes to this topic. So I'm enjoying learning. And this is what this is to me tonight. I was learning a lot because you guys have read things. I can't even pronounce the Silmarillion. Did I pronounce it right?
Silmarillion.
Silmarillion?
Silmarillion.
Silmarillion.
You got it.
Woohoo, look at me go.
It is the story of the Silmarils. We didn't even get into that.
No.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. This
needs to be a 3-parter. This one is the Fellowship of the Podcast. Fellowship of the Podcast. I'm just trying to think of the other names. The two podcasts.
We'll have the two tokens, because there's the token of the Rings of Power, which hold it. And then there's the token of the other. So there's like Tolkien-esque, and then there's Tolkien.
And then we have the third one, the Return of the Stream.
There you go. See,
Ben had good ideas.
So we need the other two. We'll get those later.
Hey, I'm pretty sure we could work that out, Tyson. Not a problem. So, all right, yeah. So we'll work that out, and we'll get this put together. In the meantime, let's talk about what we had posted last Friday as a reminder to everyone.
Last Friday we had the interview with voice actor David Arrigo Jr., the voice of Ferb from Phineas and Ferb, Leech from X-Men 97, Hampton J. Pig, and Plucky Duck from Tiny Toons Looniversity. So many other characters. And you definitely need to check out all the voices in his head, but don't worry, he shares them with us during the interview. It's absolutely fabulous. It's one of my favorite things I've edited last week.
That's it. I actually did not know that they were Ferb and Morph. That they're such like differentiating voices. But yeah, you can still find
one quick second. Shana Martin says, I grew up listening to The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings via cassette and a very special radio play audio edition. Oh, that's very cool.
Man. I love that version. It's so beautiful.
I don't think I didn't even know that existed. So to me, that's very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
If you can still find that episode and all of our other episodes on our YouTube channel and all your favorite audio podcast providers, along with Good Pods. Fantastic. So,
yeah.
Sorry, absolutely. I immediately lost the notes.
Yeah, well, you did good from memory there, kid. You can also check us out on our website at www.fsfpopcast.com and go check us out on Patreon as well. Now, this Friday, we have an interview coming with Stephanie Chakowski. So yeah, this was an amazing interview. You best know her as Tavine from Star Trek Picard, or if you are a fan of Doom Patrol, as many are, you know her as Hammerhead from that show. But one of the cool things, cool. Thanks, Shana. Shana Martin says that she will send us a link for it. That's awesome. But now one of the cool things about Stephanie is that not only is she an amazing actress who's been in some very cool IPs over the years, but she has an amazing story of perseverance. This woman fought not one, not two, but 3 separate types of cancer and beat them all. She is just amazing. And she has a fantastic blog out there that talks people through their beginnings of their journey through cancer and and doesn't sugarcoat it, what you can expect to happen and what some other reactions to chemo and some of the other medications and all these different things, and what it feels like to lose your hair and what it feels like to have this happen, all these different things. So there's the actress and then there's the cancer survivor, and both sides of her personality are amazing. And if you don't want to wait till Friday, well, then you can check that out very shortly on our Patreon community. And that is, there's again, $1 for just early access a month, $3 for early access, and then access to any bonus content we put out. And that bonus content will apply to all of the back episodes that are out there. And then of course the $15 episodes where you have an opportunity to not only get on this style of a podcast, but also on our Star Wars RPG. So you'll have 2 opportunities a year as a $15 member subscriber. But anyway, that's out there at FSF PopCast. You can find it on our website, fsfpopcast.com, or you can go to patreon.com/FSF PopCast, and you can check it out there as well. Anyhow, that is going to wrap us up for tonight. Any final thoughts before we get the heck up out of here?
I look forward to the second installment of this discussion.
Absolutely. This has been this has been very fun. Very, very encouraging for me as a noob, as somebody who's kind of learning. And just as a reminder, August 24th, season 2 of Rings of Power comes out. I'm sorry, Ben. Ben does not like this picture, so I'll put this picture up instead. So August 24th, that comes out for those of you who are enjoying Rings of Power. And again, like we said earlier, like what you like, love what you love. We're not gatekeeping anything here. If you're enjoying Rings of Power, by all means, if you're enjoying Rings of Power, by all means, please continue to enjoy Rings of Power. So on that note, I think we have opportunity to say goodbye. So, yeah, like, goodbye.
Copyright 2024 FSF PopCast. Reference any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF PopCast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpopcast.com.